What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So let's take a look at the Texas primary. We're mainly looking at the Senate, but we have some new numbers here. So I want to show you overall early voting. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's go. We're going to do this every day. I might actually do another one later today. So stay tuned. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. You'll get that notification. But I want to give you guys the most updated information when it comes to the numbers. And I'm doing this video in the morning. And so later in the afternoon, we'll have different numbers so I can show you those as well. So let me go ahead. And first off, we're looking at VoteHub. And they have been updating. Every day they've been updating the numbers when it comes to early voting. Now, let me show you the Republicans first. Now, VoteHub does indicate that the information that we're seeing might not be up to date, might not be the most up to date when it comes to the Republicans, okay? Democrats, they say that it should be up to date, but when it comes to Republicans, they're saying that it's not the most updated information, or there could be some discrepancies there. So I'm just putting that out there right now. So when it comes to Republicans, right now we're looking at the ballots cast at 642,681. Okay, we're looking at the percentage here, 62.7% of the 2022 final number. Okay, so this is the information I think that they're referring to that might not be the most accurate when you're comparing it to 2022. But eventually we'll get the final numbers and we'll know. So let's go ahead and take a look. Early voting is at 614,675 ballots cast. Mail-in is at 28,006 ballots cast, and that gives us this total here that we just went over. And then we're looking at 2022, the same time frame. It was 462,625. So the final numbers, early voting, we saw was 1,025,018. Okay, so that is the Republican side. Now, remember, on the Republican side, the anticipation is that we're going to see a runoff. So we'll see a runoff between Cornyn and Paxton. Most likely, Hunt could squeeze in there and maybe knock out Cornyn, and we could see a Paxton-Hunt runoff. But right now, the anticipation is going to be Cornyn and Paxton. And if we do see a runoff, it will happen in the second half of May. Okay, so let's go back and let's take a look at the Democrats. Now, this is where we're seeing a real surge. Democrats are really showing up in their voting. And so right now we're looking at 754,765 ballots cast, and that is 120.7% of the numbers that we saw in 2022. And so Democrats are really energized. They're out there. They're voting. You have two popular candidates, Tallarico and Crockett, and you have Democrats that are out there, and they're participating in this whole process. Now, they're not just voting for the Senate. You have other races that are going on as well, but I think most of the attention right now is focused on the Senate. Okay, let's take a look. When we're looking at early voting, so early voting, 725,176 ballots cast. We're looking at mail-in ballots, 29,589. That gives us the total that we just went over. Now, when we go back to 2022, at the same time, we saw 286,822 ballots cast. And so the final numbers that we saw for 2022 was 625,152 ballots cast. So that was the total that we saw in early voting in 2022. Right now, they're well over that. And so in essence, they're about 21% over what we saw in 2022 when it comes to voting. And so that's a big percentage, and that percentage is only going to increase over the next few days.
No, mind blown, to quote the show Blossom Joey. Whoa! I mean, look at this. Okay, share of Texas midterm primary ballots at this point in the cycle cast in Democratic primaries or Republican primaries. In 2022, the last midterm, overwhelmingly, the votes were being cast in Republican primaries, 62%. But look at what's going on now in the 2026 cycle. More votes are being cast on the Democratic side. What a shift from where we were 4 years ago at this point. More people in Texas picking up the Democratic ballot.
More Democrats are voting in Texas than Republicans. I mean, how unusual is that?
Just how unusual. Well, you see the massive shift from 2022, but look at history. Go all the way back. When was the last time that more people actually picked up a Democratic ballot, cast a ballot in a Democratic primary in Texas in a midterm? You have to go all the way back to 2002. So this could break an over 20-year stretch, my goodness gracious, whereby more people are actually voting on the Democratic side. And I will note, it really hasn't even been close since 2002. Overwhelmingly more people have been voting on the Republican side in Texas. And this year so far, more people are voting on the Democratic side.
This is different, very different, with a capital V in this case. So we still have a few days to go here. What are the chances? What are the prediction markets saying about the chances this will stick?
Okay, so we're only really been talking about the early vote. But if you look at the Kalshi prediction market, what you actually see is the chance to have higher Texas primary turnout. Right now, the people putting their money where their mouth is actually slightly predict that there will be more votes cast on the Democratic side than on the Republican side, 60% to 40%, still a close race. But given that Republicans have been so outvoting Democrats in Texas, the idea that more people could actually vote on the Democratic side in Texas, again, as I said at the top, whoa.
So, okay, the cynic might say, okay, Harry, but this is just a primary. When there's a Democratic candidate and a Republican candidate on these ballots in November, who's going to remember this? It won't matter at all.
No. Primary turnout matters. When we're talking nationally, primary turnout matters. Take a look here. Okay, national primary turnout, Edge. Which party voted more in primaries, Democrats or Republicans? And then went on to win the House. Look at this. The correlation, equal. Look at this. In 2006, more people voted in Democratic primaries than Republicans. Democrats won the House. 2010, GOP won the House. Same in 2014. 2018, more people voted on the Democratic side. More people then voted for Democrats in the fall. They won the House. And in 2022, Republicans gained that back in the primaries and then went on to win the House. 5 for 5 times. The fact that more people are voting on the Democratic side in Texas at this point, that translates nationally. Democrats, that would suggest well on their way to winning the House. And in a red state like Texas, as I said, mind blown.
History would tell us this matters. Harry, and thank you very much.
And you matter too.
Now, I want to take a look at some of the latest polling when it comes to the Democrats and the Republicans. We'll start with the Democrats here. So you have this University of Texas poll. This was conducted between February 2nd and February 16th. You have 369 likely voters, Crockett at 56, Tallarico at 44, and Hassan at 0. And so it's showing Crockett at plus 12. And the University of Houston poll, we went over this one just a couple of days ago, but I'll briefly go over it again. This was conducted between January 20th and January 31st, 550 likely voters. Crockett at 47, Tallarico at 39, Hassan at 2. Crockett is plus 8. And then the TPOR poll, this was conducted between January 14th and January 21st, 1,290 likely voters. Crockett at 38, Tallarico at 37. So Crockett plus 1. And then the Emerson poll. This is the one that shows Tallarico ahead. This was conducted between January 10th and January 12th. 413 likely voters. Crockett at 38, Tallarico at 47, Hassan at 1. And you have Tallarico at plus 9. So looking at overall, the averaging of the polls, and that's just Real Clear Politics that we're using here, they're averaging it at plus 3% for Crockett. Now, looking on the Republican side, you have this University of Texas poll. This was conducted between February 2nd and February 16th, 350 likely voters. You have Paxton at 36. You have Cornyn at 34. You have Hunt at 26. So you have Paxton plus 2. University of Houston, this was conducted between January 20th and January 31st. You have 550 likely voters, Paxton at 38, Cornyn at 31, Hunt at 17. And so that's Paxton plus 7. You have JL Partners. This was conducted between January 31st and February 3rd. 600 likely voters, Paxton at 27, Cornyn at 26, Hunt at 26. You have Paxton at plus 1. And then Emerson, conducted between January 10th and January 12th. 550 likely voters, Paxton at 27, Cornyn at 26, Hunt at 16. You have Paxton at plus 1. And so you see in the latest polling on the Republican side, you have Paxton ahead. On the Democratic side, you have Crockett ahead. Now, when it comes to Crockett and Tallarico, this is a real hard race to call because even looking at the polling is kind of one poll will show that Crockett has a large lead, and then the other poll will show that Tallarico has a large lead, and then you have some polls that are very, very close within that margin of error. So it's going to be very hard to predict this race. And so we'll see how all this plays out in about a week. So I want to know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to win on the Democratic side? Who do you think is going to win on the Republican side? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.